When Victoria Thorne mocked Trevor Lawson's calloused hands with a smug laugh, the main hall of the Velvet Quill went dead silent. The 27-year-old real estate heiress just cornered the 38-year-old black waiter with a cruel choice: play the piano or get fired. Trevor, who carried his little daughter's heavy hospital bills on his shoulders, only wanted to finish his rainy night shift in peace. But the pride of a forgotten piano genius would not let him bow down for money. He stepped up to the piano, ready to face the wealthy crowd's mocking eyes and the angry restaurant manager. Yet, he did not know a special guest at a nearby table was watching his every move. Will a song by Chopin help him save his daughter and win back his honor? Before that moment, though, the whole night had been building toward something. It started 14 hours earlier in a kitchen that smelled like burnt garlic and wet raincoats. Trevor Lawson's shift began at 7 that morning. Now the clock on the wall read 9:42 at night. His feet throbbed inside his worn black shoes. His shoulders ached from carrying trays all day long. His old Casio watch, a gift from his late wife, ticked quietly against his wrist. Its strap was cracked in 3 places. He never took it off, not once, not even in the shower. The Velvet Quill sat on a quiet street in Savannah, Georgia. Rain tapped the tall windows in soft, steady beats. Inside, the air smelled of cedarwood, melted candle wax, and old money. Somewhere near the kitchen, a dishwasher hummed low and steady, almost like a heartbeat under the noise. A copper pot clanged once against the stove, then went quiet again. Laughter rolled across the room in waves. Crystal glasses clinked. Silver forks scraped against fine china plates. None of it reached Trevor. His mind was somewhere else. His jaw felt tight, clenched without him even noticing. That was just how his body carried worry these days, deep in the muscle, far past words. It was in room 312 at Memorial Health Children's Hospital. That was where his 6-year-old daughter, Ruby, slept hooked to a soft, beeping machine. The hospital bill sat folded in his back pocket. $4,512.80. Due by 9 tomorrow morning, or a treatment would stop. He had already sold his late wife's small gold necklace last week. It brought in $319, barely a dent in the total. Tonight's tips were supposed to close most of the remaining gap. Every dollar mattered now, more than pride, more than anything else. Trevor breathed slowly and kept moving. One more hour, one more tray, one more chance to gather enough tips to help Ruby breathe easier. He balanced a tray of wine glasses across the room. His fingers, thick with old calluses, moved with quiet care. Years of practice never really left the body. A cart rattled softly near the kitchen door. Steam hissed from a coffee machine. Somewhere behind him, a chef's knife tapped a cutting board in a steady rhythm. Trevor told himself one thing tonight. Don't make a mistake. Don't give anyone a reason to send you home early. He didn't know that from a candlelit corner table, sharp green eyes had already found him. Victoria Thorne swept into the dining room like a small storm. Her emerald silk dress, worth $3,200, caught every light in the room. Heads turned as she walked. She was used to that. She expected it, the way most people expect the sun to rise. Her gaze drifted past the crowd and landed on the stage. There, under a soft golden light, sat a gleaming black Steinway piano worth $150,000. She sat down, with her circle of friends near the front. A waiter, not Trevor, poured their first round of champagne. Victoria barely noticed him. Her friends leaned in close, laughing at something on someone's phone. Julian, a thin young man in an expensive blazer, kept refilling his own glass without asking. Diamonds flashed on Victoria's wrist every time she moved her hand. She liked people to see them. She liked being seen, period. Tonight, she had chosen this particular table on purpose, close enough to the piano for everyone to notice her. She waved a manicured hand toward the bar, calling for a bottle of 82 Bordeaux. Trevor answered the call, carrying the bottle with steady hands. His grip stayed firm despite the ache spreading through his fingers. As he poured her glass, Victoria's eyes caught something odd. Thick calluses lined his ring finger and pinky finger. Not the calluses of a waiter. She knew those calluses. Her old piano teacher had the very same marks, built from decades pressing down on ivory keys. Victoria smiled, slow and sharp, like a cat spotting a mouse. She turned to her friends and whispered something that made them all laugh. She reached into her Chanel purse and pulled out a thick stack of cash. 20 $10 bills and one crisp 50. $250 in total. Her nails, painted a deep wine red, tapped once against the leather purse before she snapped it shut. With one flick of her wrist, she threw the money across the piano keys. It landed with a hard, dry slap that echoed through the room. A few coins from someone's pocket jingled somewhere nearby, small and out of place against the sudden hush. The bills fanned out across the black and white keys, crumpled and careless, like scattered leaves after a storm. "Since you clearly love pianos so much," she said loudly, "why don't you actually play one for us tonight?" The whole dining room went quiet. Forks stopped moving. Even the soft clink of ice cubes seemed to fade into nothing. Trevor stood frozen, tray still balanced on one hand. His heart pounded once hard against his ribs. Every eye in the room turned toward him, waiting, watching, wondering what the tired waiter would do next. His heart thudded once hard against his ribs. His palms felt suddenly damp against the silver tray. Somewhere behind him, the air conditioning clicked on with a low hum. It felt too loud in the silence. From near the cash register, restaurant manager Arthur Sterling shot Trevor a warning look. His bald head gleamed under the lights, his jaw tight with silent threat. The rules at the Velvet Quill were simple and firm. Staff never, ever touched the stage piano. Not once, not for any reason. That rule had been posted on the staff room wall since Trevor's very first day. He had read it 11 times. Sterling's eyes bored into him now, small and hard, daring him to make the wrong choice. If Trevor stepped forward, Sterling would fire him on the spot. He would lose this month's pay completely, with no warning and no mercy. If he refused, Victoria might do something worse. She was a lifetime member here, and her family's money kept the lights on. Her family's donations had paid for the new kitchen just last spring. Sterling reminded the staff of that fact often, almost like a warning. Trevor's temples throbbed. His mind raced straight to Ruby's small face, pale against white hospital sheets. Her small chest rising and falling under thin blue blankets. $250. It was humiliating, but it was also real money. Almost a fifth of what he still needed by morning. He opened his mouth to apologize, ready to step back and disappear into the kitchen like he always did. Then Victoria's smile curled wider, colder. She leaned toward her friends and spoke just loud enough for the whole room to hear. "I mean, look at him. A middle-aged black waiter probably doesn't have the class to touch a piano this fine." The words landed like a slap. Something in Trevor's chest cracked open, sharp and sudden. His grip on the tray tightened until his knuckles turned pale. He stepped back half a step, his hand brushing against his apron pocket by pure habit. His fingers touched something small and stiff. Slowly, he pulled it out. A folded piece of paper, soft at the edges from being carried too long. It was a drawing. Ruby had made it 2 days ago, right before they wheeled her into her hospital room. Red crayon lines showed a man wearing a cape, standing tall and proud. Underneath, in shaky 6-year-old handwriting, she had written 7 words. "Hold your head up high, Daddy. I'm proud." He traced his thumb over the crooked red letters. Ruby had pressed so hard the crayon nearly tore the paper. Trevor's throat tightened. He remembered his late wife's voice from years ago, warm and certain, like it was speaking to him right now. "Don't ever let this hard life dim your music, Trevor," she used to say. Not for anyone. The paper in his hand felt heavier than any tray he had carried all night. Something inside him shifted, quiet but absolute. His shoulders straightened on their own, like some old, forgotten muscle memory waking up after years of sleep. He was done being small tonight. He was done shrinking so other people could feel bigger. Trevor folded the drawing gently and slid it back into his apron pocket close to his heart. He lifted his chin. He thought back to a smaller version of himself, age 9, sitting at his very first piano. His grandmother had saved for 2 years to buy it. At 17, he won a full scholarship to a well-known conservatory in Atlanta. His professors called him a rare talent, one they saw only once in a generation. Then his wife got sick during his second year. He left school to work 2 jobs, and he never once looked back with regret. Music never truly left him, though. It just went quiet, tucked away like an old photograph in a drawer. His eyes were no longer the eyes of a tired waiter hoping to survive the night. They were steady now, unshaken, almost calm. Rain drummed harder against the tall windows as Trevor turned toward the stage. Each step felt slow, deliberate, and sure. His worn leather shoes struck the wooden floor with a soft, steady rhythm. The whole room seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere behind him, a chair leg scraped against the floor as someone leaned forward to watch. Someone's fork clinked once against a plate, then fell still. His pulse beat steady in his ears now, calm instead of frantic, like a decision already made. Manager Sterling started forward, ready to stop him before this went any further. Victoria raised one finger, and Sterling froze in place. "Let him," she said, smirking. "I want to watch him embarrass himself in front of everyone." Trevor reached the piano bench and pulled it out with a quiet scrape. He sat down, back straight, hands resting on his knees. He did not touch Victoria's money. Instead, with 2 fingers, he gently swept the bills to the far corner of the piano. He brushed the crumbs of humiliation aside, like they meant nothing at all. Then he adjusted his white shirt cuffs, one at a time. He placed his rough, calloused hands on the cool, pale keys. The whole hall went silent, waiting to see what would happen. The ivory felt smooth and cold beneath his fingertips, familiar in a way his body had never forgotten. Would hands that carried heavy trays for 14 hours still remember how to make music? Under the crystal chandelier, whispers spread through Victoria's table like smoke. A young man named Julian leaned toward his friends. "Let's see if he plays street jazz," Julian muttered, smirking. "Or maybe just bangs on it like a drum." A woman beside him giggled behind her napkin, careful not to let Sterling see her laughing. None of them noticed Maria, still watching quietly, her jaw set tight, with quiet anger of her own. The keys felt icy under Trevor's stiff fingers. Years of carrying ice buckets and clear plates had left his joints tight and sore. Each knuckle popped faintly as he flexed them once more. His first note came out thin, a little dry, missing its usual weight. Victoria's lips curled into a satisfied grin. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple. His jaw clenched tight, the muscle jumping once under his skin. He flexed his fingers once, quick and small, trying to shake loose the stiffness built from carrying trays. From near the kitchen doorway, an older woman named Maria watched quietly. She was the restaurant's cleaner, gentle-eyed, her hands rough from years of scrubbing floors. She gave Trevor a small, knowing nod. Her eyes were wet, though no one else seemed to notice. Maria had seen him leave every night this month, rushing straight to the hospital instead of home. She knew exactly what he was fighting for. Maria had lost her own husband 7 years ago. She understood the weight Trevor carried better than anyone else in that room. She pressed a folded napkin to her chest, silently rooting for him from the shadows near the kitchen door. Trevor closed his eyes for one long second. He drew in a slow breath, letting the cold ache leave his fingers. Somewhere far off, thunder rolled low across the rooftops. When he opened his eyes again, the noisy dining room seemed to vanish completely around him. His hands began to move, playing the opening notes of Chopin's Nocturne in C-sharp minor. Slow, sad, achingly beautiful, the melody drifted through the room like smoke curling from a candle, filling every quiet corner of the hall. Even the rain outside seemed to soften, as if it too had leaned in closer to listen. A single tear slipped down an old woman's cheek at a nearby table, though she made no sound at all. His fingers warmed quickly, moving now with the sharp precision of someone trained since early childhood. This was no ordinary waiter's hands. He wasn't playing for Victoria's money anymore. He was pouring out every hard night, every unfair moment, every sleepless hour by Ruby's bed. Each note carried weight. It was the sound of a father crying, without tears, of Savannah's storm raging just outside the windows. Thunder rumbled once, far off, low and deep, almost matching the rhythm of his left hand. A candle near the stage flickered. When the air shifted, its small flame bending sideways for a moment. It was the sound of a small girl's fierce, stubborn will to keep living, note by trembling note. Slowly, the smug looks around the room began to fade, replaced by something closer to awe. Victoria leaned forward slightly in her seat, her wine glass forgotten, swaying gently in her loose grip. This melody was too perfect, too controlled, too impossible for someone who was supposed to be just a waiter. The music rose into its hardest, fastest section, notes tumbling and dancing beneath his flying fingers. Suddenly, dampness from the storm outside caused the F-sharp key to stick, letting out a dull, broken sound. Victoria noticed the flaw instantly. She grabbed her silver spoon and let it drop hard against her china plate. The sharp clink rang out, sudden and jarring, aimed straight at breaking his focus at the worst moment. Trevor's shoulders stayed loose. His face stayed calm. Even his sweat gathered at his hairline under the warm stage lights. Trevor didn't flinch. Without missing a single beat, he shifted his technique, using both hands to cover the broken note. He wove the spoon's harsh clatter into the music itself, turning her small act of sabotage into a bold, dramatic accent. It sounded for one brilliant second like the piece was always meant to include that exact sharp interruption. The climax ended on a long, deep, ringing note that seemed to hang in the air forever. The entire dining room fell into complete silence. Even a soft patter of rain seemed to pause outside the windows. Somewhere in the kitchen, a pan lid clattered softly against the counter, then stopped just as fast. No one moved. No one dared break whatever spell had settled over the room. Victoria sat frozen, stunned, her careless little trick now making her look small and foolish in front of everyone. Trevor slowly lifted his hands from the keys. He sat still for 3 long seconds, chest rising and falling. The silence stretched on, so deep you could hear the faint tick of a clock somewhere near the bar. Then from somewhere in the back of the room, a single clap rang out, loud and clear. It grew fast, spreading like fire, until the whole dining room erupted into thunderous applause around him. People rose from their seats, eyes shining, moved by the story they had just heard, through his music. An older gentleman near the window wiped his eyes with a cloth napkin, not caring who saw him. Even the young bartender, usually bored and half watching his phone, stood frozen with his mouth slightly open. Trevor stood and gave a small, humble bow. He had won back something no amount of money could buy. He looked straight at Victoria. Her face had twisted into something ugly, somewhere between shock and pure fury. Her pride, bruised in front of everyone she wanted to impress, demanded one thing now: revenge, swift and merciless. Victoria shot up from her chair, heels striking the floor hard, as she stormed toward the stage. She jabbed a finger toward Trevor's chest, her voice cutting sharp through the fading applause around them. That's enough. This is completely out of line. A filthy waiter just used the club's property to make a scene. Manager Sterling rushed over immediately, bowing his head low in front of Victoria, clearly desperate to please her. Sterling, Victoria snapped, fire him right now. Make sure he never works in another restaurant in Georgia. If you don't, she added coldly, my family pulls our $500,000 sponsorship from this club tomorrow. Sterling's face turned pale. He swallowed hard, then turned to face Trevor with cold, flat eyes. Take off your apron. Sterling said quietly. "Leave now. There's no pay for tonight." Not 1 cent. Trevor's hands, still warm from the piano, began to shake slightly at his sides. He forced them still. He thought of the empty envelope waiting for him at the hospital front desk, still needing $4,000 more. Trevor stood there, staring down the sudden collapse of everything he had worked so hard for. Ruby's treatment, his only real chance. His mind flashed to Ruby's small face again, pale against the white pillow, waiting for him to come home. For one terrible second, he wondered if standing up tonight had been a mistake after all. As Sterling raised a hand to call security, a deep, calm voice rose from a nearby table. "That won't be necessary," the voice said. Every head in the room turned toward the sound. An older man stood slowly from a nearby table, silver hair combed neatly, wearing a perfectly tailored gray suit. His name was Harrison Caldwell. He served as artistic director for the Savannah Symphony Orchestra, a name everyone in that room respected. He was also, as it happened, the single largest business partner backing Victoria's family real estate company. Harrison walked straight toward the stage, ignoring Victoria completely as he passed by her side. His footsteps echoed against the wood floor, each one steady, unhurried, full of quiet purpose. He reached Trevor and looked at him with wide, disbelieving eyes, then wrapped both arms around his shoulders. "Trevor Lawson," Harrison said, voice thick with emotion, "I have searched for you for 15 long years. Ever since you vanished from the conservatory without a single word," he added, still holding Trevor close. The room buzzed louder now, dozens of quiet conversations blending into one confused hum. A woman near the bar whispered to her husband, asking who this silver-haired stranger could possibly be. Julian's smug grin had completely disappeared. He stared at Trevor like he was seeing a stranger for the first time. The room buzzed with confused whispers. A conservatory? 15 years? Nobody understood what they were hearing, except Victoria. Her stomach dropped. She knew Harrison Caldwell never wasted words, and he never showed this much emotion for strangers. Her friends at the table had gone completely silent, none of them daring to whisper a single word now. Harrison finally released Trevor and turned toward Victoria, his warm eyes suddenly turning sharp and cold. "Miss Thorne," he said evenly, "your father's $12.4 million expansion project needs my bank's approval next week. Watching your rude, classless treatment of a true musical genius tonight makes me question that partnership seriously." His voice never rose, never sharpened into anger. It simply carried the quiet weight of a man used to being obeyed. Victoria opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. No words came out at all. Victoria's face drained of all color. She stood frozen, unable to form a single word in response. Harrison turned back to Trevor, his smile returning, gentle and full of genuine pride. He reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a thick, gold-trimmed business card and a heavy envelope, both offered with steady hands. Warm light from the chandeliers washed over the two men standing together at the piano. Victoria and Sterling stood frozen nearby. They looked small now, standing off to the side, like two people who had already lost everything that mattered. Harrison spoke clearly, so the whole room could hear him. "I am offering you the lead pianist position for our next season." He placed the thick envelope directly into Trevor's hands. Inside sat $10,000 in cash, an advance on his new salary. "This is yours right now, Trevor," Harrison said gently. "Go take care of little Ruby. Don't wait another minute." Harrison squeezed his shoulder once, firm and warm, the way an old friend might after years apart. Somewhere behind them, Sterling shuffled his feet, unsure now whether to apologize or simply disappear into the kitchen. Trevor took the envelope with both hands, bowing his head slightly toward the man who once believed in him. For a moment, he could not speak at all. His throat felt tight, full of 15 lost years. He untied his server's apron and laid it softly on the piano's edge, right beside Victoria's untouched $250. He had never once touched that dirty pile of cash, not even to push it further away. A father's quiet pride had just won a real, lasting victory over the cold arrogance of easy money. Trevor walked out through the front doors of the Velvet Quill, stepping straight into the warm Savannah rain. Behind him, the people who had mocked him now stood facing the heavy cost of their own cruelty. Trevor didn't look back. His feet moved fast now, carrying him through puddles and past dripping streetlights toward Memorial Health. Every step brought him closer to room 312, closer to Ruby's small hand waiting for his. Streetlights blurred gold and white through the falling rain, smearing across every puddle he passed. His shoes squished with each stride, but he barely noticed. Nothing could slow him down tonight. Rain soaked through his shirt, but he barely felt it. His chest felt lighter than it had in years. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked once behind a fence, then went quiet again in the falling rain. He thought of the crayon drawing folded safe in his pocket. A man in a cape, chin held high. Tonight, for the first time in a long time, Trevor Lawson believed every word his daughter had written. He reached the hospital doors, breathless, rain dripping from his hair onto the clean tile floor below. The night nurse looked up, startled by the soaked, smiling man rushing toward the elevator with an envelope in hand. Water dripped steadily from his sleeve onto the polished floor, forming a small, growing puddle by his feet. "I'm here for Ruby Lawson," he said, voice steady, strong, nothing like the tired waiter from hours before. The nurse checked her clipboard, then glanced up at him with a small, tired smile of her own. "She's been asking for you all evening," the nurse said softly. "Room 312, second door on the left." Trevor thanked her and pressed the elevator button 3 times, as if that might make it arrive faster. Upstairs, Ruby stirred gently in her bed as the door creaked open, letting in the hallway light. "Daddy," she whispered, blinking sleepy eyes toward the tall, damp figure standing in her doorway. Trevor crossed the room in 3 quick steps and knelt beside her bed, taking her small hand in his. "I kept my head up, baby girl," he whispered, voice cracking with emotion he no longer needed to hide. "Just like you told me to." He pressed the envelope gently onto her blanket, right beside her tiny fingers. Ruby smiled, eyes half closed, already drifting back toward sleep, safe now in a way she couldn't fully understand yet. Outside, the Savannah rain kept falling, steady and soft, washing the city clean for a brand new morning. Down the hallway, a nurse smiled quietly to herself, having overheard every soft word between father and daughter. Trevor pulled a chair close to Ruby's bed and sat down, still dripping rainwater, onto the tile floor. He watched her chest rise and fall, steady now, no longer fighting quite so hard for every breath. He reached over and gently smoothed a stray curl of hair away from her forehead. For the first time in months, he let his own eyes close, just for a moment, right there beside her. Somewhere across town, at the Velvet Quill, the piano sat quiet again under its golden light. Its keys had cooled now, still holding the faint memory of a song that changed one man's whole night. But everyone who had been there that night would remember exactly what real music and real dignity sounded like. Word of what happened at the Velvet Quill spread fast through Savannah over the following days. Some called it luck. Others called it fate finally catching up with a man who deserved so much better. Trevor Lawson knew the truth was simpler than either of those words. He had simply refused to bow his head. He had carried his pride quietly through 14 hard hours, and in the end, that pride had carried him home. And somewhere in a small hospital room, a little girl slept soundly, dreaming of a father in a cape.